Hey, what's happening, guys? Good morning, everybody, and Merry Christmas. Yesterday was actually Christmas, so I hope all of you guys had a wonderful Christmas. Hope you got the day off work. Hope you got to eat some good food, and hopefully you got to spend some time with friends and family, maybe smoke some weed, watch some Christmas movies, whatever your thing is. But I had a fantastic Christmas. Today's video, we're going to be covering the news, talking about what things are going to look like in 2023, talking about some things going on in the world, going on in business, going on in the economy. I had a fantastic Christmas this year, and I think one of the reasons it was the least consumeristic, I don't know if consumeristic is a word, but it was the least consumeristic Christmas I've ever had. Kind of my side of the family and my girlfriend's side of the family all decided not to do gifts this year. We got gifts for like the grandparents and the kids and the babies, but outside of that, we didn't do gifts, and it was so nice not having to run around buying a million things. I think a lot of Christmas is kind of pointless. It's like I'm buying a bunch of people $50 gifts that I know that they don't want or need, and I don't know what to get them. But hey, it's Christmas, so we have to spend $50 on every single person. And next thing you know, you spent $600 buying bullshit that nobody wants or needs, and then you wind up getting a bunch of bullshit that you don't want or need. So by my girlfriend's house, we played a couple games. We did a white elephant exchange. We also played some game where you wrap up money and candy and some other goodies in saran wrap, and then people roll dice, and then you pass the thing around, and people are trying to unwrap this saran wrap ball with oven mitts on. So, just kind of did fun things like that, but it was nice not having to haul presents over to people's houses, haul presents home. I made a ton of stuff this year for Christmas. I made wonton wrapped salamis. I baked like 6 loaves of bread. I made some feta pasta, buffalo chicken dip. It was nice making a bunch of stuff and kind of having people appreciate what you made. And then, smoked a lot of weed, watched a lot of Christmas movies. I saw kind of an interesting Christmas movie, not very Christmassy, but definitely a Christmas movie called El Camino Christmas. I believe it's on Netflix. Recommend giving it a watch. It's kind of a crazy movie, kind of some crazy twists. And it's actually got Casey from Yellowstone in there. If you guys haven't watched Yellowstone, definitely recommend checking that out too. I think that might be the best series of all time. I'm a little bit behind on the current season. I think I just watched episode 3 last night with my parents. If you guys are looking for, I know today sometimes is kind of a chill day of hanging out, maybe ordering some pizza, making some soup, watching movies with some family or friends. Some of my favorite Christmas movies you might want to check out today: Office Christmas Party, A Christmas Story, Family Stone, Home for the Holidays, and Home Alone. Those are a few of my favorites. I'd love to hear what are your favorite holiday movies. My neighbors brought me over some homemade cookies. I thought that was kind of cool. In a lot of these videos, I talk about how a lot of these things that bring us together as a community, whether it be trick-or-treating or anything else, is kind of dying out, right? People report having less friends or less connected to their communities. So I think it's kind of cool when people kind of do these old school things, like come over and bring some, fresh baked cookies over for the neighbors. I thought that was kind of neat. I've talked about how I think we're kind of in a calm before the storm. Not a lot happens in Q4 at the end of the year, and especially not a lot happens in the last couple weeks of the year in December, right? Like if a company's going to hire somebody new, they're normally going to give you a start date, maybe a week into January. When it comes to big purchasing decisions, we'll put that off until the end of the year. If any of you guys are in sales, you know how anybody you hit up in December, they're going to say, contact me in a couple weeks after the new year. So, the new, kind of those last couple weeks of the year, everyone's just kind of in Christmas mode. A lot of people are taking time off. Not a whole lot is going on. People are just kind of trying to soak up and enjoy the holidays. And so I've kind of talked about this recession was kind of put on hold until after the midterms. And then once the midterms ended, we were kind of already in the holiday season. I saw a recent survey of Americans found something like 44% of people said they'll do whatever it takes to make the holidays fun, to make the holidays good. And if that means going into credit card debt, spending money you can't afford, they're going to do it. Almost half of Americans are willing to do whatever it takes to give their family and give themselves a good holiday. So when we talk about some of these negative repercussions, some of these negative effects happening to the economy, I think a lot of this is going to be put off until after Christmas because people, even if it means going into more credit card debt that you can't afford to pay off, you got to give the family a good Christmas. So I think once we get into the new year here, I think you're really going to learn. I think it's really going to be solidified that we are in a recession. Just continuing to see more and more articles from researchers and economists about how we're heading for a recession in 2023. I think most of us would agree we are already in a recession. I saw the other day, so we had 3 power substations attacked in Washington state, leaving thousands of people without power. This seems to be a trend sweeping the country, right? People like shooting out power substations, doing other attacks on power substations. I don't know if you guys realize this, but the water filtration plants, they need power to run. What would you do if the power got knocked out in your area and not only did your house go cold, but you weren't getting clean drinking water out of the tap? Now, it may be a temporary thing. It may last a couple hours. It may last a couple days. Who knows? It may last a couple weeks. But are you prepared for something like this? You could literally spend $50 to $100 and be fully prepared for several months. Go get yourself a space heater. Go get yourself 3 cases of water, 5 cases of water. What's a case of water? $3. Go get yourself a 50-pound bag of rice from Costco. Go hit up Aldi. Spend 60 cents or 80 cents. Get a bunch of canned food, and you could be prepared for whatever happens. And I think too few people are prepared. One thing I was wanting to do was getting a wood stove or a wooden pellet stove. I've been noticing my house is an older house. It's not insulated that well. I got a lot of windows, and there's kind of a lot of areas where kind of drafts come in. And my furnace, not only is my furnace on its last legs, but it has a hard time my house has a hard time keeping up with staying warm. So I was thinking about getting a wood pellet stove. I figure that way if the furnace ever goes out, I got something to keep warm. And also I just feel like it gives kind of a good ambiance. But what things could you do to kind of be better prepared for what the world throws at you in 2023. We're starting to hear rolling blackouts across the country because of too much energy usage with the cold, as well as all these electric vehicles, all these EVs are putting more strain on the power grid. We talk about how our power grid isn't equipped to kind of handle not only all the people we have, but, all the new electric vehicles we have. And during times of freakish weather, whether it be really hot weather or really cold weather, when a lot more people are running their furnaces or air conditioners, it puts a strain on our power grid. Well, it would be nice to upgrade our power grid. And you know what? That $150 billion that we've given to Ukraine in the past year, that money may have come in handy for doing good things right here at home with our own infrastructure, right? Over this past weekend, we had 12,000 flights canceled over Christmas weekend. This is an economic disaster for airlines. I saw in New York, Conwell Edison is asking people to conserve as much power as possible. The power grid, the power system, it's much more fragile than you think. And in one single day over this recent storm, these past few days, the natural gas supply in this country fell more than 10%. So what Christmas gifts were the most desired in 2023? Number 1, cash. Number 2, gift cards. Number 3, clothing and shoes. And that was followed at number 4 by food and drinks. We've been talking about the problem of shoplifting a couple weeks back. We talked about how that gas station in Philly is hiring guys with AR-15s to guard the gas station. We see in cities like Seattle and Portland and San Francisco, you can just walk into a store and walk out with $1,000 worth of goods, and the police won't even try to stop you because nobody will be prosecuted. We have a $100 billion retail theft problem going on in this country, and it seems like everybody is just kind of okay with it. Another thing to kind of keep in mind: things are good right now. If people are just walking into stores and taking stuff during good times, what are things going to look like in a recession? What are things going to look like in a potential depression? What are things going to look like when somebody can't put food on the table or can't put gas in their gas tank? How crazy are things going to get then? In the crypto space, $116 billion in value was lost in 2022. I saw an article recently which covered 17 different crypto moguls who collectively had $116 billion wiped away in their wealth. And that's not even considering, the American people and how much they've lost to the fall of Luna and Voyager and FTX and all the other crypto exchanges and DeFi protocols that have collapsed in 2022. We might do a video just kind of going into that specifically. Let's see, potential supply chain shortages. So here's something you might see in 2023. The reason being, companies are overstocked with things that they don't need, right? Like a lot of companies weren't able to sell through their spring, summer, and even fall goods. And so now when people are looking for new stuff or things for the winter, these companies can't order inventory because they're still sitting on too much inventory from last spring, last summer, last fall. And so I think we're going to see supply chain shortages that are caused because companies either don't have the money or don't want to lay out more money for inventory. The Swiss government recently rejected adding a third gender to official forums and kind of to the government. It's weird. Normally, Europe is much more progressive and much more far left on, being open to new genders and new sexes and all this. And the Swiss government rejected adding a third gender to official forms like passports and others. So I thought that was kind of interesting. This storm sweeping the country has caused people to use more power and more natural gas. People are being told not to charge their electric vehicles as to not overload the power grid. Also, if you guys remember, back in the summer, people couldn't charge their Teslas. People couldn't charge their EVs because it was too hot out. Well, now people can't charge their EVs because it's too cold out. I saw a number of stories of people who were stuck at Tesla charging stations because Teslas won't charge in the frigid cold. And it's funny that we're all being told we should run out and go buy EVs. I think California is trying to ban combustion fueled trucks by the year 2025. I mean, that's what, less than 2 years from now. You have, I believe in California and even other states across the nation, this is starting to pick up. They want to ban gas vehicles within the next 5, 7, 10 years. And we look at our power grid, right? We're giving all our money to Ukraine, so we have no money to update our power grid. And also, the technology behind EVs doesn't really seem to be there. You can't charge them in the hot. You can't charge them in the cold. Imagine if, you're in an area of the country that's getting hit by freezing weather and cold storms, and your power goes out or the grid goes down and you're like, oh, I got to get the fuck out of Boston. I got to, head down south or go somewhere warmer. Oh shit, I can't charge my electric vehicle. So, I won't be getting an electric vehicle anytime in the near future. I was talking about this the other day too. My girlfriend works for a surgeon. They travel around and work in a lot of different places. They go to a lot of conferences. They do a lot of teaching and things like that. And one of the doctors that they were having to go to a conference with recently, he had asked my girlfriend and her boss, he said, could you guys come pick me up? We're going to be doing a lot of driving today. And I don't know if my car will make it. And I don't know if there's going to be charging stations along the way. Who buys a fucking car to where you can't even go to work for the day because you're worried about your car running out of a charge and not being able to charge it? I don't know who would buy an electric vehicle that at least wasn't a hybrid. But electric vehicles seem to be nothing but a huge nightmare. I noticed one thing funny about Amazon Prime within the past week. Normally when I do a search on Amazon Prime, I can see the items that are available for same-day delivery, next-day delivery, 2-day delivery. I can sort by Prime items. All of those options went away. I couldn't sort by Prime. I couldn't look at Prime. And when I did find Prime items, and this is, several days before Christmas, I'm seeing the first expected delivery is December 28th, January 8th. We're looking at 1, 2, 3 weeks out. What are we paying for with Amazon Prime if we're not getting the two-day delivery? That's supposedly what we're paying for. I thought this was really crazy. Los Angeles County has followed the city of Los Angeles and continued an eviction moratorium. We are 3 years into this. Joe Biden has declared an end to COVID, even though he's still, sucking up money for COVID policies and COVID protection. But COVID, for all intents and purposes, I should be calling it the Mexican beer cough, right? The Mexican beer cough is over for all intents and purposes. Yet LA County and Los Angeles continue eviction moratoriums. Like, how is that fair to landlords that they're going on 3 years of not being able to collect rent? Does anybody need this protection? I mean, in California, probably anybody can walk into an Amazon facility and get a job paying $30 an hour with benefits. But, God forbid, we need eviction moratoriums. This almost seems more like kind of a forced beginning of like UBI or an attack on landlords or an attack on private property because, certainly nobody needs eviction moratoriums for the Mexican beer cough. I do have an aunt who a couple years ago moved out to California. And I don't know if my aunt is just crazy or if people in California actually have this mentality. But she's literally scared to leave her apartment. Both her kids have had grandkids. I think she's got 3 grandkids. Hasn't seen any of them because she's scared to leave her apartment. She doesn't want to travel to come see them, and she doesn't want them traveling to go see her. And I think that kind of sick mentality is probably much more common in California and around LA County. Let's see here. What else do we got? Average consumption has dumped 66% in the last year. FedEx has had, I think, 4 or 5 consecutive quarters of less stuff being shipped and moved around the country. And leading into Christmas, I think even back in November, FedEx laid off, or at the very least furloughed, freight drivers leading into the holidays. So there's just, people aren't buying as much and not as much is needing to be transported. And a lot of people look to companies like FedEx and UPS to be kind of early indicators of an economic downturn because normally things should always have to move. If things aren't moving, that means people are spending less. Talked about the Amazon Prime thing, talked about the eviction moratorium. 1 in 6, this is kind of a crazy stat in my home state of Illinois. 1 in 6 Illinoisans used food stamps to pay for their Christmas meal. That's 11% of the population using food stamps. Do you think that is a sign of a healthy economy? And eventually we get to the point where all the people taking and using resources from other people gets larger and larger. There's not going to be enough people producing to, essentially, in WEF technology, to feed the useless eater, so to speak. Let's see, this year the average Christmas dinner was up 9% from last year. Potatoes up 20%, parsnips up 30%, eggs up 40%, frozen turkeys up 15%. So when the government or the Fed tries to tell you that inflation is 7% or 90%, obviously we see that it's multiple times that. We talked about people stranded at power stations on Christmas Eve because their Teslas wouldn't charge. A UK university told people not to say Christmas because it's too Christian-centric. Okay, we got some news about the Putin Russia-Ukraine war. Putin has finally said the word war 300 days in, and he's now just acknowledging that they're at war. Putin has also said that he is ready to discuss a peace deal, but the West wants war. And I've talked about this a lot in recent videos. It's really weird how the people who had masks and booster shots and everything else in their Twitter profiles, on their Reddit accounts, if you were supportive of COVID lockdown matters and authoritarian governments and vaccine mandates, the chances that you support Ukraine and strongly support Ukraine are nearly 100%. So it's really weird to see these people who are, if all of us staying home and killing the economy for 2 years saves one life, it was worth it. These same people are the people who are cheering on drones dropping grenades on young Russian soldiers and things like that. The people who are so adamant about saving one life seem to be really pro-war, which seems very odd. It's weird how the left is now super pro-war. It's weird how social media has removed all hate speech guidelines for this war and allowed hate speech to be used towards Russians. It's also weird how in the past, during wars, the government was always careful to demonize the governments or the military and not the people. And that's not true this time. Right now, everyone's like, fuck Russians, da, da, da. Let's see. The Mexican beer cough is apparently sweeping through China. They have 37 million infections per day. They've stopped even releasing their number. Obviously, their numbers were fabricated, but they've stopped releasing their numbers. We're hearing that crematoriums are overrun and they can't keep up. I mean, I guess when you keep people in their homes for 3 years, they're not exposed to, any bacteria, any illnesses, their immune systems probably kind of go dormant, and then you let everybody out, and, of course, everybody's going to get sick. It's not really that surprising. It probably would be better not to lock down and allow people to get things in waves as opposed to locking down and then suddenly letting everybody out and allowing everybody to get infected all at one time. You guys have probably heard about ChatGPT. It's like a new AI. Google ChatGPT. I believe it's by a company called OpenAI. I didn't realize it's only been around for a couple weeks. I thought this had been around for a while, but I guess it's been around for about 2 weeks. I've been playing around with it. It's actually pretty decent at giving you answers to questions, and even potentially can be used for writing content or copywriting. And apparently Google is freaking out over this because, potentially a lot of smaller companies can come out and create very sophisticated AI programs that, are better or more efficient than Google search engine. Google has kind of had a lock on, being the gateway to the internet for people for the last 20 years. And they're really worried about what ChatGPT is going to do to their business model. Credit Suisse, who's likely insolvent, has filed a criminal complaint against a blog that was critical of them. We had a record number of migrants cross over the U.S. border in November. We see cities are crumbling. We can't even take care of our own people, and we're being overrun by people coming from other countries. Even in liberal cities and blue cities and states, we're having governors and mayors, Austin, Texas, El Paso, Texas, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, the governor of California. They're declaring a state of emergency. We can't take care of, we don't have the resources for all of these people pouring over the border. Yet the Biden administration doesn't seem to be too concerned about this. They say it's, only the far right views this as a problem. Biden and Kamala Harris don't really care about the border, haven't visited the border. And we have seen in Florida, in Texas, and a lot of these states and cities along the border, they're starting to send bus loads or plane loads of immigrants up to, these blue cities and states who seem to be so welcoming of immigrants and I guess illegal immigrants. And so over the weekend, I think it was on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, a busload of immigrants was dropped at Kamala Harris's house. And it's kind of like, all of these blue cities are fine creating this huge problem down on the border in other cities and states because they don't have to deal with it. So now these governors of a lot of these border states, these mayors of a lot of these border states are starting to say, you know what, you created this problem, you deal with it, and they're shipping everybody up to these cities and states. What else do we got? Kind of going back to the aid to Ukraine, that $150 billion we used to send over to Ukraine for corruption, that might have been better used for building a border wall or taking care of all of the immigrants pouring into our country. So another article, Americans are realizing that Tesla isn't the only electric car on the market. A lot of people are moving over to other EVs, and it's been kind of funny. I've been seeing a lot of kind of snarky people on Twitter like, fuck you, Elon Musk, I got a Chevy Bolt instead. I'm never buying a Tesla. And then people will tweet below them, Chevy Bolt just had a giant recall. And apparently the cars are catching fire or something crazy like that. A judge has ruled, I thought this was a funny story, a judge has ruled that fans can sue over movies, over movie trailers that are misleading. I guess there was some movie trailer that featured, what movie was it? It was okay, I guess I don't have the movie. But there's some movie that showed a certain celebrity. I guess her scenes were cut from the movie, and moviegoers are suing the movie studio saying that it was a misleading trailer. And the judges said, yes, they can do that. Supply chain issues will continue throughout 2024, a recent study found. Talked about this, but many companies are sitting on too much stuff that they don't need, and stuff that people don't want. But because they're either over leveraged, don't have room to store more stuff, or just don't want to shell out more money, they're not going to order in the stuff that people do need. California has banned landlords from conducting background checks on renters. And we've recently learned that DeSantis has an edge over Biden if the 2026 election were to happen today. I think that's kind of all of the news. We're coming off Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, so somewhat of a slow news cycle here. But that's kind of the news for today. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. And I'll catch you guys on the next video.